So let's take a look at some of the dinosaurs that we see from the Jurassic. We have another prosauropod, Massospondylus, that's around. So again, it's from Africa, and it has that really odd thumb claw, right, that you can kind of see down here sticking up. And again, remember, these dinosaurs were definitely walking around bipedally, but could easily, as you see in the skeleton, drop down to a quadrupedal stance, right, to feed or do whatever they need. Our major predator at this time was Allosaurus. It kind of looks like a mini version of T-Rex, to kind of give you a good body plan there, but it's definitely different than T-Rex for sure. It was definitely a very common predator all over the Morrison Formation. A pretty big bipedal dinosaur. It's got a pretty short neck and a very large skull. It's got these little, let's see, get a good color here, these blunt horns here in front of the eye, so that's a really good way to identify Allosaurus. It's also got the short limbs, right, just kind of like most of your theropods there, and it has 3 toes. And what's interesting when we take a look at the skull, we see that it's definitely got modules, that different areas where stress can be transmitted across the skull very easily and directed away from the brain, which is important when you're a predator and you have lots of bite force, right? Because if you bite down on something really hard, you don't want to rattle your brain. So transmitting that stress away from the brain is important, and definitely shows us that this is a predatory animal, not a scavenging animal. All right, now moving into my favorite group, these are the sauropods. These are the dinosaurs I study. These are the absolute largest land animal that's ever lived on the planet. They can be anywhere from, 20, 40 feet long to well over 150 feet long. They're just incredibly huge. Their weight is definitely grossly overestimated most of the time. Due to some of the work I did, yes, that is my maiden name there, I definitely took a look at the torso of a lot of these sauropods and noticed that we put their bones together wrong. Most people don't care about the ribs of animals. And when you put the ribs on the vertebra correctly, it actually makes this dinosaur much thinner. So the size of these dinosaurs is still a little bit contested, but they're definitely much smaller than we ever thought. Some sauropods had armor on their skin, or along their body. The posture, they're definitely quadrupedal animals, as you can see here, walking around on all fours. However, right, as a biologist, we have to recognize that male dinosaurs are going to need to be bipedal for just a few moments in time, right, while they mate. So that is something that we have to think about when we start to model these animals and look at the different muscles that they have. And of course, they have this really, really long tail back here as well. So taking a look at some of these really common Morrison Formation dinosaurs, first one we have is Apatosaurus, found all over the western part of North America. 15 feet tall at the hips, anywhere from 60 to 75 feet in length. It's got these peg-like teeth, so it's definitely telling us that it's eating a special type of plant, right? It's using this raking motion to eat plants. It's got its nose right on top here, not down at the tip of the snout, but it's actually right on top. And as you can see, it's got a really wide mouth, right, again, to facilitate lots of food going in there. Then we have my personal favorites. It's a shame this bottom picture here didn't quite come out. This is the dinosaur that I did my research on, and this is Camarasaurus. Camarasaurus is kind of a smaller end dinosaur, but very common Morrison Formation. So again, if we take a look at the skull, here we have the nose. So you see this sauropod has a humongous nose, quite impressive. Here we've got the eye, right back here. Again, this is the sinus cavity and that diaspid condition, okay, back here. Its teeth are very different. They're shaped like a spoon. So just between these two dinosaurs, you can see they were not in competition with each other because they're clearly eating from two different food sources. You can see it's got a very tall mouth, right, very narrow. So it's definitely doing something quite different than Apatosaurus. Now this brings us to one of my favorite issues, and this is Brontosaurus. Brontosaurus is a dinosaur that really no longer exists, although I'll return to that here in a second. This was a dinosaur that was modeled quite a long time ago when museums were kind of first getting started and they wanted to put a lot of big dinosaurs in their museum. They would go out to the Morrison Formation because it's easy to find these big sauropods. And remember I told you back in the geology video that the bone density in the Morrison Formation is really, really high. We find massive amounts of dinosaurs. So when the Carnegie went out, they found a dinosaur, and they found everything but the head. Right? So they had all of this stuff back here, this beautiful skeleton, and they put it together, but of course it's missing the head. And, you know, you want to have a head. People like looking at teeth for whatever bizarre reason. So the next summer they went back out to see if they could find the skull. And they found the skull, but they found it 10 feet away from where the skeleton was found. Now, most of the time that wouldn't be a problem, right? But due to the bone density in the Morrison Formation, it turns out that this skull actually belongs to a different dinosaur. So what we have back here is we have the body of an Apatosaurus and the skull of a Camarasaurus, right? So we've got two dinosaurs put together. Obviously today we separate them into the correct dinosaurs. Now there is a different group of sauropods that show some pretty interesting features, and some people have thought about naming those Brontosaurus, so kind of bringing back that name, which only adds to the confusion of what this dinosaur is. I haven't heard too much more about that recently, but the Brontosaurus that you know and love and Hollywood knows and loves does not exist. It's an amalgamation of two dinosaurs. Then we get into some truly huge dinosaurs. We have Supersaurus, which again is another Morrison Formation dinosaur. It's known from only a few bones, the shoulder blade and some neck vertebra, but they're huge. I mean, they're absolutely humongous. The shoulder blade itself, right, which of course if you're not good with anatomy, this is the shoulder blade. The shoulder blade itself is just 6 feet long. I mean, this is a humongous dinosaur. This is a dinosaur that's going to be well over 100 feet in length, so truly amazing. But to bring you to my favorite dinosaur name of all time, and that's Seismosaurus. So Seismosaurus is combining, the name there combines geology. So seismic is what happens when you have an earthquake. So the name means earth-shaking lizard. So if you really want to call someone thunder thighs, there you go, call them a seismosaur. But this is a huge herbivorous dinosaur from the Morrison Formation. This dinosaur can be up to, 150 feet in length, potentially. Anywhere from 108 to 180. But we're talking, something half the size of a football field. This is huge. This is a humongous animal. And to me, it's just really amazing to think that something this big could be wandering around. Now, these bones weren't nearly as big. They're big, but they weren't as heavy as you would think, because they're filled with lots of air sac space. So there's lots of empty space in those bones, which makes them nice and light, right, which is going to help that animal move. Seismosaurus is only known from a partial skeleton. These animals are either not dying in the right environment to get fossilized, or they're just being scavenged, right? One of these dinosaurs dies, and this is going to provide a meal for many, many different animals. All right, moving into some other dinosaurs, some ornithischians. We have our Stegosaurids, which is the most common one that you know is Stegosaurus. Its name means roofed lizard, and it's talking about its mouth, the palate bone in its mouth. But this is an armored dinosaur. It's definitely well known for having these plates on its back and the spikes on its tail. The plates on its back serve a couple of different purposes, which this is another interesting point. The plates on its back do not have a hard connection with any of the bones. So these plates have been modeled throughout time, being in different locations all over the skeleton. But we feel fairly confident that this is a good place for them because they're sitting on top of the spine, which can handle a lot of weight. But these plates are definitely serving a protection function. Serving a protection function, right, protecting the spine, and also for thermoregulation, right? These are giant solar panels that are sitting there, helping the animal collect heat. Then, of course, we have the thagomizer, which is what the tail spikes are made up of, and that is just definitely defense. That is a pretty awesome, flashy thing there. Our next ornithopod here, and ornithopod means bird feet, right? So it's kind of bird-type feet. It has no armor. They have a horny beak, and they do have molars, right, teeth that are essentially in the back. And what's really important about ornithopods is these are the first animals that could chew. So chewing like a cow. And that's pretty important because as you grind up those plants, that's when you release the nutrition for the animal to be able to digest. So being able to chew is pretty important there. So they don't need to rely on those gastroliths, on those stomach stones to grind up all their food. So one of the first ones we're going to see here in the Jurassic is Camptosaurus. Its name means bent lizard because you can see this big bend here in its spine. And again, it's what we call facultative biped because it's moving around bipedally, but it can easily drop down to all fours when it needs to eat. Definitely a plant-eating dinosaur, as we can tell, right, from its teeth in there. Now, also at this time, we start to develop our pterosaurs. So pterosaurs are a flying group of reptiles. They're not dinosaurs, but a flying group of reptiles. And they're pretty awesome because they have these huge, and we're going to talk about some really big ones that evolved in the Cretaceous. They have these really big wings, and the wing here is going to develop on the fourth finger, right? So that's the pinky finger. Right? The other fingers are located up here, but the pinky finger is greatly expanded, and that's where the wing comes off of. So that's quite different, right, than what birds do. But we can divide up pterosaurs into two groups. We have the rhamphorhynchoids, and the rhamphorhynchoids have this diamond-shaped tip on their tail, so very easy to identify. And pterodactyls are tailless, right? So again, that's a pretty good foolproof way to identify those two. But these are animals that are eating fish, right? They're sailing over that epicontinental seaway, eating and grabbing fish at will. All right, this is a great place to stop. I'm not going to finish with the Jurassic because I want to save talking about birds and flight for in class because that's a really fun topic, talking about how birds are derived from dinosaurs. So we're going to save that there, and I will see you all soon.